In a world of constant flux, the biggest risk you can take is staying exactly where you are. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I am so glad you're here because today, we are going to do something a little different. We are going to take a piece of literature that you have probably seen 1,000 times, maybe on a bookshelf at an airport, maybe on your manager's desk, maybe in a dusty box in your garage, and we are going to deconstruct it until we find the absolute bedrock of human psychology hidden underneath. We are talking, of course, about Dr. Spencer Johnson's Asterisk Who Moved My Cheese? Asterisk. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, "Oh, I know that story, it's about mice in a maze," stick with me. Because we aren't just reading a bedtime story today. We are looking at a specific, deep dive summary based on the Vietnamese edition of the book, *AI Les Ming Format Quatois. Published by First News. And the reason this specific version matters is that it highlights the global scale of this narrative. We're talking about a book that companies like Apple, IBM, Citibank, and even the U.S. Army have used to train their people. Think about that for a second. The U.S. Army isn't in the business of reading fairy tales. They are in the business of survival. And that is what this book is actually about. It's not about cheese. It's about survival in a world that refuses to stand still. So let's settle in. I want you to clear your mind of the clutter of your day, the emails, the notifications, and let's walk into the maze together. The book begins with an introduction by Dr. Kenneth Blanchard, the heavy hitter behind the 1 Minute Manager. Blanchard sets the stage with a concept that I think is the root cause of almost all our anxiety. He talks about the complexity of the human brain. You see, we love to pat ourselves on the back for being the dominant species. We have logic, we have reason, we have complex emotional structures. But Blanchard argues that when it comes to change, our intelligence is often our greatest liability. We overthink. We analyze. We construct elaborate narratives about why things should be a certain way, rather than accepting how they are. He gives us this incredible example of Charlie Jones. Now, Charlie Jones was a legendary broadcaster for NBC. He was the voice of Olympic track and field. That was his identity. He knew the athletes, he knew the stats, he was the man. Then, suddenly, the network reassigns him. They move his cheese. They take him off track and field and put him on swimming and diving. Now, if you're Charlie Jones, what is your reaction? Is it, "Great, a new challenge"? No. It's anger. It's resentment. He felt unappreciated. He didn't know anything about swimming. He felt like his status was being stripped away. His performance suffered because he was broadcasting through a filter of bitterness. But then, he hears this story, the story we are about to discuss. He realizes that his cheese, track and field, had moved, and it wasn't coming back. No amount of anger would turn the swimming pool into a running track. So he pivoted. He decided to learn everything about swimming. He regained his curiosity. And the result? He felt young again. He brought a new energy to the booth, and eventually, that adaptability helped lead him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That is the why it matters, right there. The world doesn't care about your tenure. It doesn't care what you did yesterday. It only cares about how you adapt to what is happening today. So, let's get into the metaphor itself. The framework is deceptively simple. You have the cheese, which is whatever you want in life, your job, your relationship, your health, your money, your spiritual peace. And you have the maze, which is where you look for it, your company, your family, your community. And inside this maze, we have 4 characters. And I want you, as you listen to this, to ask yourself, which one am I right now? Not which one do I want to be, but which one am I really? First, we have the mice, Sniff and Scurry. In the Vietnamese edition, they are called Dan Hoi and Han N. Their names tell you everything. Sniff smells the change early. He's the guy who looks at the market trends and says, "Hey, something's off." Scurry is the action taker. He doesn't need a committee meeting, he just moves. They are simple. They use trial and error. If they hit a wall, they turn around. They don't sit at the wall and complain that the architect was an idiot. They just run. Then, we have the little people. These are beings the size of mice but with human brains and human emotions. We have Hem, *Uli*, and Haw, *Cham Chap*. Hem is the denier. He digs his heels in. He fears that change will lead to something worse. Haw is the conflicted one. He initially resists, but he has the capacity to learn. He eventually realizes that change might lead to something better. The story starts with all four of them searching for cheese. It's a grind. They put on their running shoes every morning. The mice use instinct, the humans use complex strategies. And eventually, they all hit the jackpot. They find Cheese Station P. Station P is the promised land. It is a warehouse floor to ceiling filled with the highest quality cheese imaginable. It's the IPO. It's the perfect marriage. It's the tenure track position. It's the moment you say, I made it. And this is where the divergence begins. This is the most critical part of the first act. How do they handle success? Sniff and Scurry, the mice, keep their routine. They wake up early. They run to the station. And this is the detail that will haunt you if you forget it. They take off their running shoes and tie them around their necks. They never put them away. They are ready to run at a moment's notice. They are successful, but they are not settled. They smell the cheese every morning to see if it's turning sour. Hem and Haw? They do what we all do. They get comfortable. They start sleeping in. They dress a little slower. They walk to the station instead of running. They start treating the cheese not as a gift, but as a right. They throw their running shoes in the back of the closet. They lose them. Why would they need running shoes? They have the cheese. They decorate the walls. They write slogans like, Cheese is happiness. They build their entire social identity around being the owners of Station P. They invite friends over to show off their pile of cheese. They become arrogant. Their confidence turns into complacency. And here is the core argument of this section: success is dangerous. Success breeds a false sense of security. The little people stopped observing the environment because the environment was treating them well. They let their complex brains convince them that this state of affairs was permanent. But the universe has a natural law: change happens. One morning, the inevitable happens. The cheese is gone. Station P is empty. Sniff and Scurry arrive. Are they shocked? No. Are they angry? No. They had been sniffing the cheese for weeks. They knew the supply was getting lower. They knew it was getting older. They saw this coming. They look at each other, they don't overanalyze, they just grab those running shoes from around their necks, tie them on. And boom, they are back in the maze. They changed because the situation changed. Simple. Now, cut to Hem and Haw. They arrive later, full of that slow, arrogant swagger, expecting their breakfast. And they find nothing. The reaction here is visceral. Hem starts screaming. Who moved my cheese? It's not fair! His face turns red. He is shouting at the universe. He feels victimized. Haw is just paralyzed. He stands there in shock. He shuts his eyes. He covers his ears. He literally tries to block out reality. He cannot process a world without his cheese. This brings us to the second massive chunk of this philosophy: the transition from comfort to crisis. This is where we see the trap of intelligence in full force. Hem and Haw start to rationalize. Hem argues that because they are little people, because they are smart and special, they are entitled to the cheese. Mice are just mice, they just eat whatever. But we deserve this. We built our lives here. He demands compensation. He demands an investigation. He wants to know who moved it. Do you see what's happening? He is trying to solve a political problem. Who moved it? When he actually has a survival problem. Where is the food? He is using his intellect to justify his inaction. He is building a fortress out of his own denial. They spend days, then weeks, returning to the empty station. They are getting weaker. They are getting hungry. And they start to turn on each other. They blame each other. They blame the government. They blame the economy. And then, in one of the most tragic and hilarious moments of the book, they decide that maybe the cheese isn't gone. Maybe it's just hidden. Maybe someone put it behind the wall. So Hem, this brilliant, complex human, decides the solution is to dig a hole in the wall. He gets a hammer and a chisel. Think about the absurdity of this. The cheese is gone. The mice are already halfway to a new station. And the humans are standing in an empty room, hammering a hole in a wall, sweating, bleeding, exhausting themselves. This is what we call working harder, not smarter. How many times have we done this in our lives? The relationship is over, but we keep texting, trying to hammer a hole in the wall to find the love that used to be there. The industry has shifted. Print media is dying, for example, but we keep trying to optimize the printing press. We are sweating over a hole in the wall, convincing ourselves that this constitutes work. It's not work. It's denial dressed up as effort. Meanwhile, Haw is starting to crack. Not crack as in break down, but crack open. He's hungry. He's tired of listening to him complain. And he starts to think about the mice. He wonders, do Sniff and Scurry know something we don't? Hem shoots this down immediately. He uses fear. He describes the maze as this terrifying, dark place. He says, it's dangerous out there. We're comfortable here. We know this place. Why risk it? Hem is the voice of the status quo. He is the voice of fear that disguises itself as prudence. But Haw begins to realize something profound. He looks at the hole in the wall. He looks at his emaciated friend. And he starts to laugh. This is the turning point. This is the moment where we move into the third and perhaps most important phase of the story, the awakening. Haw laughs at himself. He laughs at the absurdity of sitting in an empty room waiting for yesterday's lunch. He realizes, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. And right now, what they are getting is nothing. So, Haw goes to find his running shoes. He has to dig them out of the pile of stuff he accumulated. They are dusty. But he puts them on. He tries to get Hem to come with him. He gives a great speech. He says, the cheese is gone, Hem. It's never coming back. That's life. Life moves on. And so must we. But Hem refuses. He is too afraid. He is too attached to his identity as the victim of the cheese theft. He wants to stay and wait for justice. Haw realizes a hard truth here. You cannot force someone else to change. You can lead them to the water, but if they want to sit in the desert and complain about the thirst, that is their choice. So, Haw steps into the maze alone. Now, this isn't a superhero movie. Haw doesn't just sprint off into the sunset. He is terrified. His stomach is in knots. He takes a few steps, and the anxiety hits him. What if I get lost? What if I starve? What if Hem was right? This is the fear of the unknown. It is the biological brake pedal that stops us from leaving bad situations. We prefer a familiar hell to an unfamiliar heaven. But Haw uses a tool that is used by elite athletes, by CEOs, by the military. He uses visualization. He stops in the corridor, closes his eyes, and he doesn't just hope for cheese. He sees it. He visualizes himself sitting in a pile of his favorite cheeses, Swiss with the holes, bright orange cheddar, soft brie. He imagines the smell. He imagines the taste. This mental image overrides his fear center. It gives him a destination. It turns the unknown into a potential reality. He stops along the way and writes on the wall. Now, in the book, these writings are called the handwriting on the wall. They serve as breadcrumbs for him, in case he ever decides to follow, but really, they are affirmations for Hall. He writes, asterisk, if you do not change, you can become extinct. Asterisk. That's heavy. That's Darwinian. It's not. If you do not change, you might be sad. It's extinct. In a corporate setting, that means bankruptcy. In a career, that means obsolescence. As he moves deeper into the maze, he finds a few scraps of cheese here and there. Just enough to keep him going. And this validates his decision. There is cheese out there. He hasn't found the motherlode yet, but the mere existence of these scraps proves that Hem is wrong. The world is not empty. Haw starts to reflect on how they got into this mess. He realizes that the cheese at Station P didn't disappear overnight. It had been shrinking. The last few pieces were moldy. He admits to himself, I saw it, but I didn't want to see it. This is the concept of vigilance. He writes another lesson on the wall, asterisk. Smell the cheese often so you know when it is getting old. Asterisk. This is such a crucial piece of advice for the modern world. How many of us are in jobs where the cheese is getting old? The company isn't innovating. The culture is getting toxic. The industry is being disrupted by AI. The cheese is smelling a little funky. But we ignore it because we don't want to put our running shoes back on. We don't want to go back into the maze. Haw teaches us that denial is a luxury we cannot afford. Then, Haw hits a wall, metaphorically. He finds a station that looks promising, but it's empty. He collapses. He's starving. The fear comes rushing back. He thinks about turning around and going back to Hem. At least with him, he wouldn't be alone. But then he asks himself the question that I think is the single most powerful line in the entire book. He writes it on the wall. Asterisk. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Asterisk. Let that sink in for a moment. Asterisk. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Asterisk. Would you stay in that job? Would you stay in that relationship? Would you keep your mouth shut in that meeting? Or would you move? Haw realizes that his fear is the only thing holding him back. He realizes that the fear in his mind is actually worse than the reality of the maze. The reality is just walking. It's just searching. The fear is a monster he created. Once he laughs at the monster shrinks. He realizes that he is actually happy. And this is strange, right? He hasn't found the big cheese yet. He's still hungry. So why is he happy? He's happy because he is no longer a victim. He is taking control. He writes, asterisk. When you move beyond your fear, you feel free. Asterisk. The cheese is the goal, yes. But the prize is the person you become while looking for it. Haw is becoming resilient. He is shedding his little person arrogance and gaining mouse-like agility, but combined with human wisdom. He pushes forward. He runs with new energy. He isn't running away from Station P anymore. He is running toward possibility. And finally, he finds it. Cheese Station N. It is massive. It is bigger than Station P ever was. It has types of cheese he has never even seen before. And who is there waiting for him? Sniff and Scurry. Their bellies are full. They welcome him. Haw dives in. He eats. He celebrates. But, and this is the climax of his character arc, he does not make the same mistake twice. He enjoys the cheese, yes. But the first thing he does, he takes his running shoes, ties the laces together, and hangs them around his neck. He inspects the cheese supply. He explores the dark corners of Station N to see if there are any changes in the inventory. He has learned. He keeps his simple mouse instincts alive, while using his human brain to appreciate the moment. He thinks about him. He considers going back to get him. But he realizes that he already left the trail. He wrote the messages on the wall. Hem has the map. Hem has to choose to walk the path. Haw realizes that you can't carry someone else through the maze. They have to develop their own legs. So, let's zoom out. What have we learned from this journey through the Vietnamese summary of this classic? We learned that the world is divided into the simple and the complex. We learned that Sniff and Scurry represent the part of us that just does. The part that executes. The part that doesn't let ego get in the way of survival. We learned that Hem represents our entitlement. The part of us that thinks the world owes us stability because we worked hard 10 years ago. Hem is the danger zone. Hem is the one who goes extinct. And we learn that Haw is who we must strive to be. Haw isn't perfect. He gets scared. He gets complacent. But he has the self-awareness to laugh at himself, put his shoes back on, and ask the hard question. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? The context of this book, being used by IBM, by the Army, by Samsung, proves that this isn't about cheese. It's about the speed of adaptation. We are living in a time where the cheese is moving faster than ever before. Skills that were valuable 5 years ago are obsolete today. Industries that were stable are being upended overnight. If you are sitting at your version of Station P right now, feeling comfortable, looking at your awards on the wall, feeling like you own the place, I want you to check your neck. Where are your running shoes? Are they tied there, ready to go? Or are they buried in the closet? And if you are currently in the maze, scared, uncertain, looking for the next thing, take heart. You are doing the work. You are moving. And as Haw discovered, the movement itself is freedom. So, my challenge to you this week is this: find one area of your life where the cheese is getting a little old. Maybe it's a project that isn't working. Maybe it's a habit that is holding you back. Don't analyze it to death. Don't shout. It's not fair. Just laugh at it. Put your shoes on. And ask yourself, what would I do right now if I wasn't afraid? And then go do it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the maze.